Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm not quite compos mentis yet.
We are up fairly early in LA time.
Yes, there are some virtues about having jet lag.
And exciting day. You're picking up our eldest from college today. She's
That's
coming
right.
home.
Yeah.
So, for today, somebody actually sent us in a question. So, we thought we would spend some time answering that question. We know we're not going to be able to answer it fully, but we're going to just sort of point in that direction. So the question that was sent in was this person says, I wake up with severe anxiety. I get flooded with negative thoughts the moment I wake up. I try to push the thoughts away, but I start my day with these thoughts and I hate it. And so the first thing that comes forward for me to share is just to one, compassion. I can really have empathy for how difficult that is. And I have had periods of my life where I've had a lot of anxiety, and I know how uncomfortable that can feel. And because of the discomfort that comes with the feelings of anxiety, it's really natural to see the thoughts of anxiety as a problem, to see the feelings of anxiety as a problem. But actually, it's the resistance to the experience that ends up making it harder to navigate. And one of the statements in the question, I try to push the thoughts away, that's something that can just amplify the experience. And I know it would feel counterintuitive, I'm sure, to not try to push them away. But in my experience, any engagement with thought is going to amplify it and make it look more real. And so part of what the understanding of the principles has shown me, and has had a really profound impact in helping me navigate my emotional experience more gracefully and easily, is how I can allow myself to have uncomfortable thoughts and uncomfortable feelings, and know, because of the nature of thought, that I don't need to do anything with them, that they are temporary. They aren't the truth. They are the experience in the moment and they feel real, but they are not the truth. And what that's helped me do is to allow myself to be with the experience, but to not engage with it, to not try to change it, to not try to change my thoughts. It's also helped me to not add on meaning to what's going on in the experience, because oftentimes people judge themselves as having something wrong with themselves because they're having a certain experience. And I know that I've certainly done that with myself in the past. If I've been feeling anxious or insecure or unworthy, I've really been hard on myself and felt like there's something wrong with me. And all that does is it adds layers and layers of thought onto an already challenging thought storm. And what happens, and I've had experiences different than this, but with panic attacks. And what happened was I started to see how I was relating to myself as I was having the experience of panic, that in a way that would just amplify it. And I thought that, the only way through that would be to not have the initial experiences of panic. But it was actually very different than that. What actually helped me through that was to see that I was okay while I was having the experience of panic. And that if it tipped over into a full on panic attack, that was fine. And if it allowed myself to kind of back out of it, if it hadn't got that far, then that was fine too. But to not have an agenda about where my emotional experience went was hugely freeing for me. And it was in that freedom that I got more expansion inside and more space to just kind of be with what is. What are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I think this is quite pertinent for me because I think that over the years, if I reflect on this, I made a colossal amount of meaning about, my state of mind when I woke up. So, for argument's sake, years ago, there was an event that took place, let's call it an event, at my school when I think I was like 9 or something, where one of the kids' parents had died in the summer holidays of anorexia, and the teacher, before the child came back to school for the, I guess, the autumn term, told the whole class this, and it was a very somber experience for everybody. And I remember being singled out as someone who I guess had been mean or teased this boy, but I remember being really singled out in front of the class, and it just was this experience of shame and horror that, that I would be singled out in such a way when it was such an awful thing to happen. You lose your parent. That was something that was kind of really horrifying to all the children present. And so I took it upon myself to sort of, think that I was in some way responsible. And I remember asking my mom, what anorexia nervosa is. And she said, she basically explained it's like people, they have these worries. And they get so worried that, they refuse to eat. And in my mind, it's like, that's just extraordinary and horrifying. How could you, get to that point where you would get so worried that you would stop eating, and ultimately that would kill you? So that, sent my 9-year-old mind into a tailspin.
And you said you felt responsible for her death? And
I felt responsible for her death. And I had all this to myself. I couldn't really talk about this with anyone, because on another level, it just felt like I was kind of going crazy. So I would wake up in the morning, it'd be the first thing that I would think of. And I think I went about 3 or 4 years. It'd be the first thing I'd think of every morning. And then I had a lot of judgment around the fact that I would think about it. And so it became this thing that, as soon as I wake up, it was like Pavlov's bell. I'd think about this situation. And and ultimately through time, I guess, I got a little bit older and wiser and let it go. But then I could see I had this reference point for what it looked like to start your day that way, to what it looked like to start your day in a happy way. And I had years for starting my day in a happy way, other than periodically through my life, there have been these events that have taken place. Like, so for argument's sake, a classic example where I would be someone I know that committed suicide, took their life. Somewhere in my mind, in my 9-year-old experience, I would try and make myself feel responsible. And so that whole cycle would begin again. And it sounds absolutely crazy, and it is in a sense a little nuts, but that's what I would do. And I'd wake up in the morning and have this experience. And so I had a couple of very strong episodes that were like that. And, ultimately I would go through that process of like waking up in the morning, judging myself for waking up and having those thoughts and feelings. And how long was this going to take? And eventually it would sort of process its way out of my system, for want of a better way of explaining that. But then when I was exposed to this understanding, what was really interesting, there was an episode fairly recently where I could see myself going down that same road. But then I suddenly caught myself having that thinking, waking up and having those thoughts, and just saying, or realizing I don't need to get on board that train. In fact, there's no purpose or reason for me to get on that board of that train of thought. And actually, ultimately, I know that there's an intelligence behind life that's really guiding me towards health and well-being, mental health and well-being. That's kind of like a given for me. So I wouldn't get on board that train of thought. And it seemed like, well, here is a perfect opportunity to see how this understanding will unfold, and if this will actually solve what has been essentially a problem for me for many years, a very sort of OCD way of thinking. And lo and behold, it actually, it figured itself out. Mm-hmm. And what could have been a really long-term thing for me, based on my history, actually, it lasted about a week. And there was no difference in terms of the severity of what happened recently in terms of what all the other things that I reacted to in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of magical.
Can you say something about how not getting on board with your thinking is different than pushing away thought? Or do you want me to comment on that?
Well, I'll comment on that. I think that it's not, for me, it wasn't like I was pushing it away. I don't know, I'm a very visual person. So I used to commute on the southern region in London. I used to get a train every day to work. And so there were times when I would have to run down the platform, and I would, to catch the train, and I'd miss it. And I kind of see it in those terms. It's like the thought comes in, the train comes into the station, and I want to, there's a sort of compulsion to jump on it. But if I know if that train is going to take me to a destination that I don't want to go to, I can just leave it alone. And it's, for me, there's a different quality to that than trying to sort of like just engage or push it away. It's kind of like, it's more of an allowance and just letting that train go. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and I think what's important to mention is that you're able to do that because you see it as a train of thought. But if you didn't see it as a train of thought, you probably wouldn't be able to not get on that train. There wouldn't be choice. And so that's why this understanding is so powerful, is because it helps us to see more clearly how we do live in a world of thought, and how when we see that more clearly for ourselves, and there's an infinite amount to see that, but when we see even a little bit of that, that it allows us to have more freedom and identify less with the thoughts. And that shows up in whatever way that shows up for you. So for Angus, it shows up as not jumping on that train of thinking. That's his visual. For me, I'm less visual and more experiential, so it just feels like I'm allowing and not engaging. But the opportunity is to find out what that is for you, and the direction to look in is not in where it looks like the problem is. It looks like the problem is the thoughts are causing the problem, the feelings of the problem. I don't want to feel this way. I need to look at my experience in order to change how I'm feeling so that I can feel better. And all that does is amplify it, and it doesn't help us get perspective from what's actually causing the suffering, which is not the content of the thinking or the content of the experience. It's simply identifying with it. And when we have less of an identification with it, there's even just a little gap gives us some perspective. And in that gap, our innate wisdom comes in and guides us. That innate intelligence that Angus is speaking to, that comes in and guides us. It guides you real time. Everybody has that inner resource that's available to every single one of us. And when we look in that direction, when we look in the direction of who we really are, our true nature, it creates a different experience. But it's not something that you do through willpower or pressuring yourself or making yourself. It's not a technique. It's simply an opportunity to explore and experiment for yourself what's bigger than your psychology, what's beyond the edges of that intense experience in the moment. And oftentimes when experience is intense, the learning isn't necessarily happening in the moment. And to not get discouraged about that, oftentimes it's after the fact that we realize we've learned something. So every panic attack I had, there was learning in that. Each time I had one, there was an additional understanding that was going on that would help me navigate the next one. And that is innate. It's inborn in each one of us. We all have that. And to really recognize that resource is so hopeful and empowering.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I guess for me, I was thinking that when I jump on that train, or is the inclination to jump on that train, I'm already in the station of well-being.
Yeah.
And there's something very soothing about realizing that that's my essential natural state, that I am in a state of well-being, and that really, why would I leave that? And really, I can only leave that through my thinking, through my negative thinking.
Absolutely. Well, it's so wonderful to see how many people joined us live.
Go back to bed.
Trevor is in England. I don't think he needs to go back to bed. Who knows where people are in the world. But thank you so much. Sending everyone lots of love. Have a great weekend, and we'll be here soon again.
Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.